Let's look at the problem together. Uh, the problem is about a library. The scenario in the library. What you have is you have customers at the library that would check out stuff like books, DVDs, and CDs. Okay, and essentially you get two pieces of information. You have the member information, and you have the inventory information. Okay, because one part would be you really at the end you need to relate these two pieces of information. Okay, because when you need to do the checkout, and the item is from the inventory, but it would be related with the member because there are certain restrictions, how many books, how many DVDs, and how many CDs that this customer can check out. Okay, and this is a sample data, and we have the requirement here. Okay, and that's the sample output. The problem for this one is a pretty long problem. Okay, so it's very, very important for you to read through the problem very, very carefully. I would say spend at least 15 minutes reading the problem. Try to understand what's the requirement, what's the required input, what's the required logic that you need to complete, what's the required output that you need to have. Okay? And after you understand what's going on, the first thing that you are going to have is to come up with a correct design. Okay, correct design. This one, although it looks pretty long, the problem itself looks pretty long, it's pretty easy for us to come up with design. The first thing that you need to have, you definitely need to have a class that's called member. Is that clear? Okay. And what attribute a member would have? And the ID should be a string in this case. Okay. Okay, so we see. What else? Okay, that's the information that we have at this point. Okay, and we need to read this information from a certain file, right? So what I'm going to do is, again, I do the same thing. I do generate getter and setters. It's pretty easy to handle all these. And what I like to have is I like to have a constructor that I read all the information from the file so that I can initialize that. Okay, and let's stop here for the member class. So what's the next thing that we need to have? So the inventory definitely should be a class, but before we talk about the inventory would have item, right? Would have item. This item can be a DVD, can be a CD, can be a book. So let's create another class called library item, right? So let's just call it item. And for this item, what attribute it would have? It would have an ID. So in this case, what we can do is we can use an integer, right, based on the requirement. And what else? Number of copies. So it will be available. What else? Type, right? For the type, what you can do is you can do a string, or if you want to do an integer, in fact you can. That's not a big problem. Let's just do a string, okay? And what else? We have title. Okay, and that's it at this point. Okay, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to do the same thing. This is the information that we are going to have from the keyboard. Very, very straightforward. Okay, we come up with these two classes, and then what I definitely need to have is I need to have an inventory so that I can manage all the items, right? That's what we mean by inventory. So now let me try to have another one that's called inventory. And for this inventory, we do very, very similar thing. We have a list of items, okay? All items. And pretty much that's it, okay? And what we are going to do is we are going to have a constructor. And what I'm going to do, I see all items is equal to new array list of item. Okay. And I'm going to just organize the import. And what's the purpose for this one is we need to really locate the, for example, suppose we try to say whether or not an item is available, right? Right? Well, that's something that we need to do, right? So definitely, there is one thing that you need to do is you need to locate one item based on the ID. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have one thing that's called locate based on the ID. Does that make sense? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go through the list of all items, okay? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to do a little bit different from before. Before, I have been using for loop, I say for, blah, blah, blah. So now I'm going to use iterator, okay? So that you get a little bit different flavor. So essentially, this iterator would help you to iterate through all the items in a collection. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say while iterator has more, I'm going to continue. I would have item. Well, say this is an item is equal to itr dot next. I get the item. I try to say if the item dot get ID is equal to the ID that you specified, which means that I found this item, I'm going to return this item. Okay? If after all this one you cannot find it, you are going to return now, which means I never found it. Very, very straightforward process. Okay. Now let's get back to the member. Okay, let's get back to the member. What you need to do is still you need to have essentially a member manager. Okay, a member manager. That's what I'm going to create. This would help you to manage this collection of members. Okay. For this one, I call it member directory. Okay. Very, very similar. I'm going to do, about the same thing. The only difference would be from the inventory is instead of using item, I'm going to use member. I know that. I try to find and replace item. ITEM. Okay, good. So for this one, definitely, we try to fix it. We say this is the member directory. And we create these all members, okay? And we try to locate. The only difference is for this guy, this is a member. And for this member, and get ID, but this ID is not an integer anymore. This ID is a string. Can I do equal for string? Would this work, folks? You cannot do comparison of string, just say whether or not it is equal, double equal. That will not do the comparison. If you really want to do string comparison, what you need to do is you need to say dot equals. If it is equal, I'm going to return the member. Okay? The other thing that I like to have is you really need to have a checkout process. Okay, a checkout process. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create the library, or a counter, okay, or librarian, okay, that who would do the checkout process, okay. That's just called counter, okay. That's the checkout counter, okay. That's the checkout counter. So what this checkout counter would have, it would have access to two pieces of information. The first piece of information is the inventory. Okay. And the other piece is the member directory. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a constructor with these two fields. And after that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a method that's called checkout. Okay? I'm going to have a method that's called checkout. Okay? And for this checkout, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a checkout result. Okay, I call this as the receipt. Okay. what we are going to do with the checkout? The checkout essentially would take the checkout file that would be one ID of the member, and then a sequence of IDs of these items, right? That's the items. Okay? Okay? So how could you do that? What I'm going to do is I'm just going to simply do this. I'm going to say I have the string of the member ID. That's the member that I want to do the checkout. Okay. Then I would have a list of the item IDs. Items. Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to import the list. Then I need to create a receipt class. Okay, I'm going to create a class that's called receipt. So what this receipt should include? If you think about okay, so what we are going to do is we can simply copy the stuff from the input. We can say, okay, it has the member ID, and it has the request. Okay, we have this list of item. Oh. That's the request. Okay? That's what you have. And then what you are going to do, if you look at the requirement, what you need to do is you need to generate the sequence of checked out items. And then you need to have this not checked out of items. Right? Right? Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another class which is right inside this one. Okay? Because here I do not need to have these items like inventory information, how many left. All I need is I just need the title and the ID there, right? So I just call this class as item info, and this item info would have two. It would have the title, and it would have the ID. And for this receipt class, I need to have a list of item. I call it checked out. And I would have a list of item that's non-checked out. Is this clear? Oh, I mistyped it. I'm sorry. I see what's okay. That's what we have for the receipt, and then we are going to work on how could we really carry out the checkout process. Okay. Now let's take a break here.